There's one word that anybody who has driven a car around Wales probably already knows of Welsh. I bet you can all guess what it is if you've done that. Hi, I'm Juliet. My parents have lived in Wales for 20 years. I'm also an Irish citizen and I don't speak either language, so I'm trying to put that right and I am learning both Welsh and Irish. So come along and learn with me. Today I am going to talk about one way to make a start as a beginner with Welsh vocabulary, and that is road signs and other signs as well. Basically, signage. Like many countries, Wales has bilingual signage. So the road signs and most other kind of signage around the country will be in both Welsh and English. In Ireland, you will see both Irish and English. In Brittany, in northern France, you'll see both Breton and French. So this is fairly common. So if you are lucky enough to be able to visit Wales, it's a really good way of just getting a basic start as a complete beginner on some Welsh vocabulary. Obviously, if you aren't able to visit Wales, that's a bit harder. You might be able to see some of these on travel vlogs or just any vlog where somebody's in Wales, but particularly kind of Welsh travel videos that will have shots of streets and roads and so on. You might be able to get some of these signs that way, just kind of looking at footage of Wales. It's hard, obviously, because people won't be focusing on the signs, but you might be able to get a sense of that. If you live in England or Ireland, then I thoroughly recommend visiting Wales. It's harder to get to from other parts of the world, but the ferries across to Ireland are very good. The Holyhead Dublin ferry is excellent. And if you're in England, most places in England are not too far from Wales, obviously, unless you're in the very northern part or might be trickier from Cornwall. But particularly if you're in the Midlands or the southwest of England, then just get yourself across to Wales and just look around you at the signs as a start to learning the Welsh language. And hopefully for those of you who can't visit Wales, then some of the pictures I'm about to show you and signs I'm about to talk about will be a nice start for you. So that first word of Welsh that anybody English who's driven there has learned is araf. This means slow. Welsh roads are slow. This is a fact. Welsh is a very mountainous country. There are some bigger, faster dual carriageways in the south, particularly. There's obviously the M4, and you've got a kind of M4 corridor connecting Swansea, Cardiff, and then into England all the way to London. And there are some other dual carriageways down that way as well. There's a few dual carriageways in the north, but a lot of Wales does not have much in the way of dual carriageways. And I say this as somebody who spent quite a lot of time at one point driving from Snowdonia to Bristol, because when my parents first moved to Wales 20 years ago, I lived in Bristol, which meant driving across the entire country or going out to England and down the M5, which sometimes was quicker. It depended what time of year it was. In the summer, there would be so many caravans which simply can't go that fast on these country mountainous roads that it was often quicker to go all the way out to England and down the M5. In winter, it would usually be slightly quicker to take the more direct route, but obviously the roads are fairly slow even in a car. So the word slow is painted all over the roads, everywhere you go, and it is of course painted in both English and Welsh. So araf, slow. That is many people's first word of Welsh. My second word of Welsh was gwesty. This is because for ages I thought every B&B in Wales was called the Gwesty Hotel or the Gwesty B&B, and I thought, well, this is a very common name for hotels and B&Bs. That's strange. You don't want to know how long it took me to work out. Gwesty means hotel. It's not Gwesty Hotel. It's Gwesty in Welsh, hotel in English, and then the name. For example, the Gwesty George III in Penmaen Pool, or the George III Hotel in Penmaen Pool, which is a lovely hotel. It's not the Gwesty, it's the George III. So that was my second word of Welsh, gwesty, hotel, also used for B&Bs. In Welsh, as far as I can tell, there doesn't appear to be a differentiation between a B&B and a hotel. They all seem to go by gwesty, but any Welsh speakers do let me know if I'm wrong about that. I made a similar mistake with the word oriel, which means gallery. And again, I'm not very bright. I don't know why they gave me a PhD. I don't deserve it. I thought every gallery I came across was called the Oriel Gallery for ages. It sounded like a word that might be a name for a gallery. It was quite a pretty word. But no, Oriel means gallery, as in this sign. In this case, it's actually a framer's, the Oriel i Bont framers, but that is the same word that is used for an art gallery in general. Another sign I have become fairly familiar with is dimkoon. I apologise, you can't read it very well on this photo. I think this is a still from one of my videos, actually, from one of my vlogs from my other channel. Dimkoon means no dogs. I have to pay a lot of attention to that sign. Now, obviously, it also comes with a picture of a dog with a red line through it, and the English no dogs, so it's not like I don't know what it means. But I have to pay attention to where those signs are, as I am, of course, often walking around Wales with my dog. In this particular rather fuzzy case, it says, Dimkoon ar y thraith hwn. I can't make out the lettering very well because it's such a fuzzy picture. But no dogs on this beach. Is what that means. But dimkoon you see quite often, which is no dogs. So those are some of the basic signs that you'll see around a lot if you're just kind of moving around Wales. But then you can look out for much more specific things in particular places. Because everything in Wales is going to be signposted in Welsh and English, there's all sorts of lovely little phrases you can pick up from shop names and town signs and monuments and all sorts of things. So I'm just going to show you a few examples. Here we have the town trail in Machynlleth, which is Llwybr y Dref. No, sorry, Llwybr y Dref. A single F is a V and two Fs is a F. And for some reason, this is an aspect of Welsh pronunciation I've struggled with. Another thing I struggle with is I'm constantly saying E instead of for the Y by itself. By itself, I believe, means the. Welsh speakers obviously correct me if I'm wrong. My last video I made about Welsh was about whoosh ar y brwsh, room on the broom. And you see it often in names and things. So I'm fairly sure it means the. So the grammar of this I'm not 100% sure of. I think it's trail of the town. Let me have a quick look. Yes, tref or dref, because consonants change in Welsh depending on the sound before them, is town. So I'm pretty sure that's trail of the town. Llwybr y Dref. Drev. That's the grammar of that sentence. So the is the. You can also see just below it, Glyndwr's garden is Gardd Glyndwr. So obviously Glyndwr is the name, part of Owain Glyndwr, and Gardd, means garden. Here's Owain Glyndwr again, very famous medieval Welsh prince. And on this memorial, you can see that it says in English, Prince of Wales. He was in fact the last Welshman to claim the title Prince of Wales before the English conquest. And you can see that in Welsh on here, where it says Twzog Cymru. Cymru is of Wales. Twzog Cymru, Prince of Wales. Here's the gardens again. Another word you'll see a lot around Wales is croeso, which means welcome. So we can see croeso, welcome. And then we see gardens in English underneath. And then in Welsh in the middle, Gerddi bro dyfi. Dyfi? Ddyfi, sorry. Gerddi bro ddyfi. So two Ds is a hard TH sound in Welsh. Bro ddyfi is the valley of the Dyfi, and then the Gerddi is the gardens. Here we can see a shop sign and the Welsh word for shop, which is shop, spelled S-I-O-P. Hen shop is old shop. Now that one I had to look up. That was not obvious from context. It doesn't mean cafe and takeaway. Hen shop Pontyper is the old shop of Pontyper, not cafe and takeaway. So that one is not as obvious from the sign itself, but obviously it's a quick Google to find out what that means. Here we have a much longer sentence. Ydych wedi talu ac arddangos. Have you paid and displayed? So I think I need to study Welsh a bit more before I can take apart the grammar of that sentence. That one is a little bit complicated for being a beginner at the stage I am at, but we'll put a pin in that and come back to it another time. Here we've got the words for the and shop again. Y siop flodau, the flower shop. So that's really helping with vocabulary. We can see the funeral directors over there, which is Trinwyr Angladdau, funeral directors. But a little bit easier to work out as a complete beginner is unffordd, one way. I'm guessing, because I've studied a lot of Indo-European languages, that is one and ffordd is way. Correct me, anybody, if I'm wrong. This one I had to use Google to get a bit of help with. Barbach, Tafarn Lleiaf Cymru. Now, I know Tafarn is pub or tavern, because again, I speak a lot of Indo-European languages. I know that Cymru is Wales. Lleiaf, I had to do a quick Google. Google suggested it means least, so this is the translation of what you can see in English in the bottom of the picture, smallest bar in Wales. The smallest tavern in Wales, Barbach, is what that means. It's a bit hard to see on the picture, it's a little bit fuzzy. This is another still from a video, but this is another one I talked about in my Woosh ar y Brwsh video, which is fish and chips. In Woosh ar y Brwsh, the dragon wants gwrach a sglodion, witch and chips for his tea. And here we can see the real life sign, pysgodyn a sglodion. Fish and chips in Welsh, and I know that sglodion is chips from Woosh ar y Brwsh, so I know that pysgodyn, therefore, must be fish. And this is how all of these little things come together, because it seems like we're not getting very far just looking at road signs and picking out individual words, tiny bits of vocabulary are not going to get you far with language learning, but building the vocabulary is how you can build the language learning over time. Because I read Woosh ar y Brwsh, I knew that sglodion was chips, which means I now know that pysgodyn is fish. Otherwise, those would be two words I wouldn't know. Not all languages have the same word order. I wouldn't know which was which. I wouldn't be able to kind of get the meaning from that, even with the English right next to it, without the previous reading of the book. So everything builds on everything else with language learning, and that's why I love it. This is another sign that you'll see a lot around Wales, of course, argared, open. You might also see argaw, which means closed. Here we can see some advertisements on the door of Barafin in Aberystwyth, where we see that pizza and pasta have not been translated, but we do see fish again, pysgod and burgers, which is fish and burgers. Cocktails is cocktails. I think that says gwyn, which means wine. Cwrw crefft, which is craft beer, and I think the crefft is craft. I'm pretty sure I've seen cwrw as beer. And then coffee, they haven't translated either. Here we can see another helpful sign, amgueddfa for museum. Days of the week here, llun to sad, Monday to Saturday. Saturday is an abbreviation, but llun actually is the Welsh for Monday in its totality. And another very helpful sign, toiledaw, toilets. Again, you're going to see the English as well, but it's useful. Welsh often refer to the bathroom as tybach, but when you're looking at a signpost, signposting public toilets, it will say toiledaw, so you know that if you wanted to ask for the toilet in Welsh, it would be more natural to ask for tybach, but you could also ask for the toiledaw. And then obviously you're looking out for men's and women's. Sometimes I find that people get too creative with the signs for toilets, and it can in fact be hard to make out which little picture is supposed to be male and which is supposed to be female, or if they're supposed to be gender neutral, which is absolutely fine. I just need to know whether or not that's the case. So Welsh for women's toilets is usually written as merched and gents is dynion. Street names can be quite revealing. Hwyl y Bont is Bridge Street. Bont is bridge, the. So Hwyl presumably means street. And finally, a different type of sign that is a bit more complex, but just as useful, museum signs. So if you go visit a castle or a museum, this is from the castle at Carnarvon, then you will see signage that will be in both English and Welsh, and especially as you improve with Welsh, if it's obviously quite a long and complicated sentence, you might want to start reading the Welsh on the signs rather than the English. So these are a bit more complex than road signs, and probably do require a physical visit unless you can find a YouTube channel that's like zeroed in on signage. But here's an example. This is a sign talking about Llywelyn ap Gruffudd, again, a Prince of Wales, and you can see Twzog Cymru, that same phrase, Prince of Wales, and then a little bit of kind of details about him. So that would be something to go over when we've advanced a little bit more with the Welsh language and can actually kind of start breaking down sentence structure. But it's definitely something to look out for if you are able to visit Wales. Thank you so much for watching. Please do give the video a like or a hype if you enjoyed it. You can see more from me at my main channel at ClassicalJG, or you can listen to me tell ghost stories at my podcast channel, Creepy Classics. And until next time, bye!